What is up, guys? Rick Hackus here, showcasing some amazing community-designed exotic melee weapons in Destiny. Now, I actually make a series where every Saturday I showcase community-designed exotics because I've teamed up with the artist Benjamin Radaman, who makes these amazingly realistic exotic weapon concepts. Now, that series has people leave their ideas for exotic weapons in the comment section, and then Benjamin chooses the best ones and makes them into these concept art pieces. And then the next week we showcase the best of last week's ideas. Now, along the way, several melee weapon concepts have been created, and I wanted to show them off today because I feel like melee weapons is such a promising area in Destiny that should definitely be expanded. Now, before I continue, I just want to quickly mention that we will not be taking the exotic concept ideas from the comment section of this video. Please save them for the main videos coming out every Saturday. Now, moving on, melee weapons. And first things first, thank you Bungie for putting melee weapons into the game. It's a fantastic thing that Bungie actually did add this new gun type into Destiny. I'm actually kind of surprised they did because there was a lot of negativity around this idea. I know because I actually made a concepts video way back when, I think even before the Dark Below, going over some ideas for some awesome new gun types to put into Destiny. SMGs, laser rifles, rail guns, and in the comment section a lot of people were bringing up melee weapons, and I remember so many people saying what a terrible idea melee weapons are, that they would never work. Thankfully, Bungie ignored the naysayers and we got melee weapons put into Destiny. Now, unfortunately, they only did add 3 legendary swords of each element, and then those 3 swords could be upgraded into their exotic versions. But again, I think melee weapons is an area that Bungie can definitely expand on in future DLC. And that's why we're going over some of the best exotic melee weapon concepts today. Because firstly, it's just cool to go over some of these awesome ideas. But I think also very importantly, although Bungie won't copy any of these ideas pixel for pixel, word for word, it's entirely possible that Bungie will get inspired by some of the ideas brought up today, and some iteration of these ideas may actually make its way into Destiny. So without further ado, let's go over some awesome exotic melee weapon concepts. Now, the first concept is the Omkara's Fang exotic sword concept by Adsi Findley. Now, the exotic perk for this melee weapon would be Feed Me. Each kill with this weapon grants a slight bonus to agility, which stacks 3 times, but most importantly, this weapon, while you're utilizing it, would grant a new ability, a mini blink strike very similar to Shade Step already in the game. And I actually think this would be a very interesting idea, giving a melee weapon a degree of evasiveness automatically built into it. Heck, even if it wasn't a new ability like a mini blink strike and it was actually just Shade Step, a sword that granted Shade Step to the user, that would be a very, very interesting ability. Having some degree of evasion and protection while using a extremely close range melee weapon is definitely a powerful asset. Now, the next exotic concept was one that was also in the main series, the Pelleted Aileron exotic sword concept. This weapon's exotic perk would make the enemy that you killed explode for massive damage with or without the blade being active. This would be a fantastic melee weapon for crowd control. Sometimes you need something like the melee weapons that are currently in Destiny and you just need to do a ton of damage as quickly as possible. But there isn't really any exotic sword right now that really focuses on pure crowd control, whereas this might just be that. If you go and target one of the more powerful enemies like a Hallowed Knight and you kill that enemy, you are going to have a lot of thralls and acolytes kind of right behind you, grouping up and trying to kill you while you're focusing on that one big main enemy. And having the ability to kill that big enemy and then cause them to explode outwards and deal with all of the thralls, for example, that have gotten near to you, that is a very good asset to have, again, especially in terms of crowd control. It would be a great addition to Destiny just because it would do something different than the melee weapons currently in the game. Focus on crowd control rather than massive damage to one source. Now the next exotic we have is the Parachute Exotic Axe concept designed by me. Now firstly, there's more melee weapons than just swords. I would love to see axes, spears, and a bunch of other different melee weapons, heck, morning stars, maces, all make it into Destiny. They would be pretty amazing. Now the exotic perk for this weapon would make it so that every time you get a kill, your melee speed and movement speed is increased by 8%. This stacks up to 5 times for a total of a 40% bonus. Now of course the numbers could be tweaked, but essentially this weapon would make it so that one of the main problems right now with melee weapons in the game, especially in PvP, is that the melee weapon users basically have to hide and wait for their targets to come to them, just because you expose yourself to so much danger if you get in any sort of long-range firefight, because you don't have a long-range weapon at all. But this weapon would make it so that with each kill you move faster and faster and faster, and eventually you're sprinting across the battlefield with substantially increased movement speed. Making it so that as you get more kills, you transform your playstyle from passive waiting for enemies to come to you to aggressive seeking out other enemies and trying to kill them and capitalize on your increased movement speed. Essentially, I want to chase people around the map with an axe while going really fast. Now the last exotic melee weapon concept we're going over today is the Starforger Kinetic Hammer concept by Dave Galindez. Now first things first, I really want to see a Warhammer in Destiny. How awesome would that be? The Titan Hammer is great, don't get me wrong, but I want to use a Warhammer and then pop my Titan Hammer for maximum hammer time. Now the exotic perk for this weapon would actually have you choose between 2 different perks. The first one is Protector. Raising your guard protects nearby allies and buffs the cooldown of their abilities. That's actually pretty darn useful, being able to raise your guard and again protect nearby allies. I can actually see this being very useful in a lot of PvE circumstances, essentially kind of a mini Titan bubble ready to help out your allies. However, if you want instead, you can choose Scavenger. Rapidly killing 3 enemies will return some heavy ammo. Now of course this ability would be tricky to activate, but when you can, more heavy ammo is always better. And this, although it has potential in PvP, obviously getting more heavy ammo is very, very powerful, I see this mostly used again in PvE. Being able to smash a bunch of thralls and then actually get more heavy ammo, you're actually going to be able to go absolutely apeshiz with this weapon in PvE. Now that's going to be it for the exotic melee weapon concepts we're going over today. Again, if you have a great idea for a melee weapon concept, please just leave it on one of the main videos coming out every Saturday. Now if you enjoyed this video and support the exotic concept series, please remember to help this series out by simply rating and sharing this video. Also, don't forget to check out Benjamin Radaman's art station for a ton more exotic concepts linked in the description down below. Now if you want to see more Destiny content, don't be afraid to slap that subscribe button. If you want to get in touch with me and keep up to date with the latest channel activity, the best way is to follow me on Twitter. That's linked in the description down below, as is my Twitch channel, which you can also follow. Again, I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, have a good day.